For a few seconds after death, your brain may still know you're dead. That possibility sounds impossible. But modern resuscitation science has started uncovering something deeply unsettling about the final moments of human consciousness. Because death, medically speaking, is not a single moment. It's a process. Your heart stops first. Blood pressure collapses. Oxygen disappears from the brain. And yet, some patients who were clinically dead later return describing vivid memories, conversations, even awareness of events happening around them while doctors believed consciousness should have already vanished. So what exactly happens in those final seconds? And more disturbingly, when does you actually disappear? For most of history, death looked immediate. No pulse meant the end. But modern medicine complicated that assumption. Today, cardiac arrest victims are sometimes revived after several minutes without heartbeat. In rare cases, even longer. Which means scientists have been forced to ask an uncomfortable question. If people can return, where were they during that time? Now look at this. In 2013, researchers at the University of Michigan studied dying brains in rats. Moments after cardiac arrest, the animals showed a sudden surge of highly organized brain activity, not random noise. Coordinated activity associated with consciousness. That should not have happened. The brain was supposed to be shutting down. Instead, for a brief window, it appeared intensely active. Some researchers believe the human brain may enter a similar state during death, a final neurological surge, possibly caused by collapsing oxygen levels, massive neurotransmitter release, and the brain desperately attempting to maintain internal order as its systems fail. And that may explain why near-death experiences often feel hyper-real. People report tunnels of light, life reviews, out-of-body sensations, distorted time perception, an overwhelming sense of peace. Scientists still debate what these experiences actually mean. Some argue they're purely biological, the result of oxygen deprivation, temporal lobe disruption, or chemicals like endorphins and DMT flooding the brain under extreme stress. Others believe that explanation feels incomplete, because some reports contain details patients supposedly could not have perceived while unconscious. Conversations, medical procedures, specific objects in hospital rooms. That alone doesn't prove consciousness survives death, not even close. But it raises a difficult question. If consciousness is entirely produced by the brain, why do some dying brains appear briefly more organized, more vivid, and more aware right before shutting down forever? And then there's the psychological side of death. Studies suggest the brain may attempt to protect itself emotionally in its final moments. Memories rapidly reconnect. Fear responses change. Time perception stretches. Some neuroscientists think the sensation of life flashing before your eyes could be caused by massive memory network activation during extreme stress. In other words, your final seconds might feel subjectively much longer than they actually are. A few biological seconds could potentially feel eternal from the inside. And that's where things become existential, because we tend to imagine death as darkness arriving instantly, a switch turning off. But biology suggests something stranger. The boundary between life and death may not be a line at all. It may be a collapsing transition, where awareness fades unevenly, piece by piece, while the brain struggles to make sense of its own ending. What do you think happens in those final moments? Comment below. The truth is, science still does not fully understand consciousness itself. We can measure electrical activity, track neurons, map behavior, but the actual experience of being alive, the feeling of existing inside your own mind, remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in human history. And death forces us directly against that mystery, because somewhere inside those final seconds, the universe may experience itself through you for the last time. Subscribe for more documentaries exploring the strange edge between science, consciousness, and the unknown.